All right, so I believe we should be streaming, and my camera broke, so assuming we're good. Earlier today, about 4 p.m., I made a video about Buzzfeed's report on Trump and Russia. We keep seeing the same damn thing over and over and over again. A report comes out, a day later it's corrected. This time we didn't even make it a day, and we have this now from BuzzFeed News. As you can see, a spokesperson for the special counsel is disputing BuzzFeed News' report. Anthony Cormier, one of the reporters, said he never saw evidence. How did this get published? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Man, I was playing video games. You know, I just had some burgers, chilling. And this is what happens. In my video today, I outlined 6 stories where in one, they said there's no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion, and all of the others were recanted, retracted. People were fired. Okay, Brian Ross got fired. 3 CNN reporters got fired. And here we go again. And I'm just going to quote this man right here. Darren America. I have no idea who he is, but he said, "Sweet tap dancing Christ, WTF is going on." So I just want to make sure that this is actually streaming correctly, and it looks like it is. I can't believe this is where we are today. This is why I made the video, okay? Ben Smith, the editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed, who I know and I respect, said that these Trump supporters who are saying, oh, the reporting is bad, you know, all this stuff about him, basically, here we are. They were presumably wrong. Well, here we go. They linked back to the story. Update. The Office of the Special Counsel is disputing BuzzFeed News' report. Who saw this one coming? If you guys want to help out, we're gonna have we'll do a conversation. We'll do super chat. I try to keep live streaming to you know, big breaking and really important events. And because my video today was specifically about how this was going to happen, I want to make sure I do a live stream that kind of addresses the fact that it literally happened. So if you guys want to super chat, I will read your comments out. Let's talk about this. You know what? I have a theory. The deep state exists, okay? I'm not saying the deep state is a nefarious new world order, any of that freaky conspiracy theory stuff. But I think at this point, there's been enough mainstream commentary on the fact that there is a permanent government. I believe that's the official name for it. Basically, there are people who work for the intelligence agencies who don't get fired when the administrations change. Their agendas don't change. So it doesn't matter who gets elected. If our intelligence infrastructure stays the same, the government stays the same. When Trump came in, he presented a threat to the deep state, or the permanent government. So what happens? I don't believe the Trump-Russia stuff is real. And you know why? Because this keeps happening. How in sweet God... Seriously, I outlined 5 stories that ended up not being true, where Brian Ross got fired, 3 CNN reporters got fired, and every single time. The New York Times did a story like a week ago where they said that Manafort was trying to give polling data to Russian oligarchs. A day later, they correct it saying, oh, Ukrainian oligarchs, we were wrong. And this is exactly what happened. So the point of my video earlier was that I said, you know what, the story could be true. But Jason Leopold has done some really good things in recent history, but 10 years ago his work was questionable and he was called up time and time again. Now we have Anthony Cormier on CNN saying, well, I've never seen the evidence. Completely irresponsible. You know what I think is going on? Wild Tim Pool conspiracy theory here. I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying, think about this. When Trump fired Comey, what did they say? Obstruction of justice. When this story came out, Trump orders Cohen to lie. What is that? Obstruction of justice. What is the point of the Russia narrative? Because there's no evidence. None. It's just constant liars lying. No, I mean that really. There's people committing perjury or something. So what's actually going on? If Trump fires these people who are investigating him, it will be obstruction of justice. So I think, in my opinion, the purpose of the Trump-Russia narrative is to prevent Trump from purging the deep state. My opinion. Because, and so the other thing is, why would law enforcement officials feed this story to BuzzFeed reporters? To get BuzzFeed to fan the flames and make sure the story persists. But here we go now. Here we go now. BuzzFeed's description of specific statements to the special counsel's office. and characterization of documents and testimony obtained by this office regarding Michael Cohen's congressional testimony are not accurate. Spokesperson for the special counsel, Robert Mueller's office. Well, you made it a day. They published this last night. They made it one day. Let's read some super chats. Let's read some, welcome to politics in 2019. It feels like everything's just collapsing. You know, like nothing is real anymore. So let's see here. Okay. Malira said, hey, Tim, appreciate everything you do. Keep finding the good fight. Appreciate it. When can we get Tim Pool beanies? When there is a company that can mass produce beanies, because like Teespring doesn't, and there's a bunch of other ones, and they have all these really garbage generic acrylic ones. You don't want an acrylic beanie, trust me. Christopher Sanford said, because they knew corrections would be ignored and the rumor would persist. Yes, because the resistance people don't follow the story. They'll hear it from their friend and they'll say it's true, we know it's true. When the New York Times issued their correction saying it wasn't a Russian oligarch, CNN, okay, I've got CNN on, and they still keep saying it. And I'm like, wow. It's really crazy, because I try to alternate between CNN and Fox News. I hate watching CNN because of that racist tirade that Don Lemon went on. And I don't like watching Fox News because they had a segment denying evolution. And I'm just like, I don't want to watch any of these. And they're all tribal apologists, in my opinion, for the most part. I do believe that Fox News hosts, not Fox and Friends, not Hannity, not Tucker, not Ingram, like Brett Baer, I think, is pretty good. When they do actual news, Fox News is fine. And when CNN does actually, no, take that back. CNN's is garbage, just pure garbage. And what's really funny, CNN kept saying if true over and over again, and Buzzfeed was pissed and apparently chewed out some reporters from CNN and saying, stop saying if true, our reporting is solid. Is it? Was it? No. You know what, man? I saw a video of Ben Smith, the editor-in-chief, and I respect BuzzFeed because they respond, right? When BuzzFeed puts out a story, I'll send them a message and they'll say, listen, here's what's going on, and I can respect that more than anybody else. Be biased, but explain to me what you're doing, like talk to me, communicate, and that's better than what most people are doing. I believe BuzzFeed actually does a better job of being balanced than many other outlets. But when I saw Ben Smith giving those statements where he was like, you know, oh, these Trump supporters don't want to believe it, like you better temper that sword, man. You better be careful. Because with all of the stories we hear where there's retractions, corrections, refutations, refuting of the narrative, you walked yourself right into this, man. Guess who says, haven't seen the video yet today, just love seeing your beautiful face, Tim. Who would have guessed BuzzFeed isn't a reliable source? And that's unfortunate, because I'll say this too, and I'm not the only person who thinks so. There are many conservatives who will say BuzzFeed News isn't that bad. They're absolutely not. I would give BuzzFeed News my rating 6 out of 10. That's like CNN gets like a 4 out of 10. Fox News gets like a 5 out of 10. Vox gets like a 5 out of 10. Okay? Because I can trust that their information will be true to a certain extent, but they're biased. In this instance, BuzzFeed published, in all likelihood, fake news. They didn't see the evidence. They contradicted themselves. I knew this was going to happen. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And this is why sometimes when stories like this happen, like I was actually planning on a different story today. So on my second channel, I talked about the free press, freepress.net. And I was thinking, maybe I should just do a video on that because I know where this is going. But I thought, you know what? No, this is important. This is Trump-Russia stuff. We should talk about it. I want to keep my main channel more like, what's the big news? What can we talk about? And my second channel is kind of just like, if I see an article I want to talk about, I'll do it. So this was big news, but I also kind of feel dumb because that video I have up today, I'm gonna have to put this live stream in as a link, like big breaking, BuzzFeed's wrong. Let's read some more of these super chats. Also, for those that are just tuning in, the super chat, I will read out super chats. You can also become a channel member where I will engage in these periodic live streams. And channel members, what you get as a member is I do periodic random live streams, and I'm trying to figure out how to get them like exclusive, but also channel members' comments appear like a super chat. So check it out. It's $5 a month. Let's say you put in $5 for a super chat and you also put in $5 as a member, your member comments will appear same as someone who puts in that money. So it's like, I don't know how it works, but it's like, you know, channel members, it's one of the least effective ways to actually support my work, but it still works. It's still good. It's not ineffective. So, all right, let's see. The Dashing Rogue says, If the mainstream media is scared of astroturfing, prevent certain IP addresses from companies and countries, also Google Operation Mockingbird. Mockingbird isn't what everyone thinks it is. I don't know the specifics. Maybe I'll do a video with Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change because he knows more about it. But Mockingbird essentially refers to how the CIA infiltrated or was feeding fake stories to journalists, and it was uncovered by a senator. I don't know the full details, but there's actually a different operation where they actually infiltrated media. Paul Shear says, Tim is mad as hell. Oh, you betcha. Uh-oh. Super Chat always jumps around, and it makes it hard for me to read. Hawk Tickus, Maximus, the deep state owns the news. There is virtually no more journalistic integrity. It's all opinions now. Keep on trucking, Tim. You're part of a dying breed. Well, look, I do opinion too, and I source these organizations for my facts for the most part. I just source beyond the, I go to all of them and compare them, right? So today I look at Buzzfeed, and I look at the New York Times, I look at ABC, and I compare Buzzfeed's reporting to all of the past stories that have been corrected, that were proven to be wrong. That was the point. So what I'm doing is analysis and opinion. I'm trying to break down the stories. My second channel is basically nothing but opinion. So you know, I am building this van out so we can do more field reporting and more ground interviews, don't get me wrong. But I'm not here to act like I'm some great bastion of truth or I'm better than anybody else in any way. Just that when I do reporting, I try to make sure I'm like, okay, here's what is likely, not what is true, right? My video today, I didn't say BuzzFeed was wrong. I don't know if they're wrong. I don't. And BuzzFeed doesn't know if they're right. Their headline was a statement of fact. Trump did this. They can get sued now because they claimed Trump did a thing and they don't have evidence. The headline of their story, check this out. The headline of BuzzFeed's story, President Trump directed Cohen to lie to Congress about the Moscow Tower project. Statement of fact. Trump did this. But when you go down, it says, according to law enforcement, BuzzFeed opened themselves up to rather extreme liability from a billionaire and the President of the United States. This was a huge mistake. The update, you know what? So let's see if they have the update at the bottom of the story, and I'll jump over the rest of these super chats. The other thing, too, is this story is just regurgitating old news to make it seem longer than it really is, because the reality is the story didn't have anything in it for the most part. They said Jason Leopold said he saw documents. Well, you apparently didn't see evidence because now you've been refuted by the special counsel spokespeople. Let's read on. Thomas Kuhn says, Tim, if it's this insane now with the media and the left, how crazy do you think it'll get if or when Trump is reelected? Oh, dear Lord. Well, here's the thing. I think right now they're doing this to prevent a reelection. I think if Trump gets reelected, they're not going to be as concerned, and this will actually die down because Trump can only have 2 terms. So here's what's going to happen. Throughout the next year, it's going to get absolutely insane. Man, if you think it's bad now, it's only gotten worse, and it's only going to get worse. James J. says, they don't want Trump to clean the swamp. Alex Black, thanks for becoming a member. Mark Skog says, DS just A/B tested y'all. That's all it is. I don't, what's DS? Jeremy Sott says, here's $5 for keeping me in the level while I don't know who I trust anymore. I just like that you keep me from going one way or the other while you go just as crazy as I do trying to keep up with all the news. Thanks for the super chat. I don't care for, you know, look, I don't care for left or right. I care for who is correct, right? If a conservative says the best way to help everyone is with this policy, I'll say, okay, can you prove it? If they can, I'll say, all right, let's do it. If a Democrat says the best way is this way, I'll say, okay, can you prove it? And if they can, I'll say, okay, let's do it. I don't care. I don't care about, you know, whose opinion on the issue. I care about what will functionally work. So when I'm reading news, I don't care. Look, if they came out tomorrow and said, Trump was a booty call for Putin and they're actually in a relationship and it's been going on for 30 years, I don't care if it is true. I don't, obviously that's an egregious, ridiculous story. I'm saying the point is, if it turns out to be true, I could care less. Do you have evidence to prove it? Otherwise, I'm not going to take your word for it. BuzzFeed BuzzFeed published this story. Yeah, great, BuzzFeed. I'm not going to take your word for it without evidence. If it's true, it is what it is. Right? So I did several videos about the Proud Boys fighting with Antifa. I don't care what's true or not. I'm sorry. I don't care who is correct in trying to claim they're on the high ground. I care what is true, right? So what happens is, at first, the only footage we get shows Antifa throwing a bottle at the Proud Boys. And that's what I report. And then all the people on the left go, oh, it's not fair. Oh, no, but the Proud Boys are bad. But then later we find that one of the Proud Boys actually rushed into the Antifa before the bottle got thrown. And I reported that too. Because if it's what happened, it's what happened. And if more evidence comes out later, we'll do that. Naturally, tribalists don't like that because they want people to just side with them based on the available evidence. I'm sorry. There is zero evidence of any of this Trump collusion stuff. Zero. Literally. That's from the New York Times. Not from me. The New York Times said there is no evidence. And this was 1 week ago. So when Buzzfeed comes out with this story and they make a statement and they say on CNN they haven't seen the evidence, I knew this was coming. Also, Jeremy, you said here's $5, but you gave 20, so I appreciate it. Mr. Ordgar says, personnel with security clearances are required to never disclose their level of clearance. They risk prison time. These leakers should be in jail. Desiccant says, please talk to investigative journalist Lee Stranahan about the Russian narrative. He can explain where the MSM left and right are getting it wrong. I'm pretty sure I know Lee. F. Bussier 80 says, are you wearing beanies because of baldness? No, I wear beanies mostly because I'm a skateboarder and it's kind of just a style thing. You will never find me in any photo, skateboarding or otherwise, without some type of skater type beanie on. And that's just a part of like what makes me comfortable in terms of style. But I assure you, I was actually wearing cargo shorts and a baggy t-shirt and no hat, and then this news broke, and there's a reason why it took me like a half an hour to get the live stream going, because I had to put on the Timcast signature outfit for doing the broadcast. So it's you know, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just kind of my style. It's how I like to present myself. I'm not going to wear a suit. I want to be more relaxed, and you know, I think there's something about like self-image. I grew up skateboarding, and there was always a certain way I dressed based on what I was comfortable and what made me feel confident. And that's what it is. So yes, even when I had hair, I still wore a hat every single day, all the time. Hashtag real name says, you don't want an acrylic beanie, trust me, Tim Pool beanie expert. Oh, I swear to God. I know what I'm talking about. Cotton beanies are pretty damn good. And most of the beanies that I have are actually designed for skateboarding. They're not winter hats. They're not winter hats. People don't seem to understand this. Go to Calexico in Mexicali, right? Go down to the malls right on the border in the desert, and they sell beanies year-round in the dead of summer. I'm telling you, skateboarders, go to Lower East Side Skate Park in New York, and this is what people don't seem to understand. It's a subculture thing. You will see a dude wearing a wool sweater and wool sweater pants and a beanie in 100-degree weather, skating drenched with sweat. It's just a skateboarder thing, you know, whatever. Maybe we're just wackaloons. Sketchy Ribbit says, you are right on the money with the deep state. So I'm gonna state this again for those that are just tuning in. My personal theory that I'm presenting without any evidence, just something I think, is that there's no evidence to the Trump-Russia narrative, but it does one thing. It makes sure Trump can't fire the deep state, okay? There are agents within the intelligence sector, within the intelligence agencies, who Trump would probably fire like that. He fired James Comey, and when he did, they screamed obstruction of justice. As long as the Russian narrative persists, Trump can't fire these people because they'll claim obstruction of justice. Thus, they are shielding themselves from being fired by someone who doesn't support them. It's very clever. But I'll say this. If Trump gets reelected, they're not going to have that same protection. Now, don't get me wrong. There's no evidence to this. I'm not saying it is true. I'm just saying it's an interesting thought I had. I learned something very great from a movie called Dogma, where Chris Rock's character says, ideas are better than beliefs. Beliefs are harder to change. So I have some ideas I lean towards, but there's very little I actually believe. I believe if I throw a glass bottle at my window, the window will break. I believe it's very likely to break. It actually might not, right? And that's something I believe. Now, I don't know the specifics of like how my cell phone works. I have an idea, but I don't believe because it's a complicated device. It's beyond me. You see, I think you get the point, right? When it comes to news, I have general ideas of what I think may or may not be true, and I assign probabilities to all of them. So when I see this story from Buzzfeed, I assign it like a 51% because I like Buzzfeed. I don't trust this narrative. And sure enough, it feels good being right. I'll tell you what, it feels so good being right. I can't believe BuzzFeed did this. I take that back. I can. And look, you guys, I've praised BuzzFeed in the past. I still respect them more than many others. It's just you gotta stay away from this, okay? Because going back into my idea about why I think the Trump-Russia narrative exists, It's also true that the narrative needs to persist, which means these agents within the deep state, or the permanent government as it's called that's the actual name of it, it's called the permanent government, they need to make sure the media keeps reporting on this. It is not surprising then that law enforcement will feed information to journalists, say, it's true, trust us, then they'll report it, get the media in a frenzy, make sure everyone doesn't forget about the narrative, and then a day later go, it was fake. Because it doesn't matter. They just need to keep the story alive. Keep people thinking it's true. That way Trump can't fire them. But it won't last forever. Lower Pterodactyl says, you must be shadow banned in my country. I've been subbed to you for months, and you don't appear at all of my notifications for the past month. Yeah, when it comes to subs, it's complicated. So I've been doing a ridiculous amount of videos on my second channel, which means overall many of my videos are getting slightly less views because I'm saturating my own market. And that means if you don't watch all of my videos, YouTube will recommend my videos to you less, but it's recommending it to more people. So ultimately views are up, subscribers are up, but for you, if you want to make sure you watch all of my videos, you have to come to my channel and make sure you see when the videos are up. So for the past few days, I've had 6 videos on my second channel, 1 on my main channel. So I've been doing 7 videos per day. Today, I did 7 videos and a live stream. I'll say this. I've been on the treadmill I've been going on the treadmill every day for the past like 4 months. And before that I was skateboarding, but skateboarding is hard to do every single day, especially when I fall and bust my hip or something. Like I tried to do a backside 5-0 on my box, slipped out and took actually it wasn't that bad, but I took like a 4-foot drop straight into like a push-up position. And so I'm messing my hands up. And so I can't skate every single day. I try to skate every other day, but I gotta say this, get on the treadmill every morning, I'm wired. Like I've got ridiculous amounts of energy. I'm sleeping less, and I'm working more, and I gotta say, man, make sure you exercise. Because I used to skate 8 hours a day, every day. And now that I do this, I've been exercising a lot less, but that's why I got the treadmill. Because it seriously increases your abilities. It makes you gotta train body and mind, and that's what I do every morning. I play Hearthstone for mental exercise. I love that game, but it's like a strategy game. Strategy card game, Warcraft, and then I do heavy incline walking and some jogging. That's what it's all about. All right, back to the super chat. There's too many. I'm getting too many super chats for me to try and get into. All right, here we go. Max M. Bacon says R4RE stream. I don't know what that is. Rare stream. Working to be self-sufficient says, how's the mobile broadcasting van coming along? I actually have good news. A buddy of mine who is a bit of a jack of all trades just told me not to waste my money trying to hire a company because he'll do it cheaper. And I'm like, come down. And we'll probably actually do some gaming. We might do a gaming show. So my buddy was, I don't want to say this in a derogatory way. He was a low-level pro skater. And I say that because it's not meant to be disrespectful. There's extremely high-profile, famous pro skaters. He was on a pro team mostly for longboarding, and he did shoots that paid really, really well. So, in the literal sense, he was a professional skateboarder, and he did a skate school. But he wasn't like one of these super famous X Games types. But he plays video games, and we game a lot, and he plays Magic the Gathering. So I'm trying to get him to come down. He's going to build the van. It's going to save me a ton of money. He's super into it because he also wants to build his own. We might do some gaming videos, so this is really good news. And then when that happens, hot dog, I'm going to be on the road 24/7. Other good news, Subverse has finally, after a year, become monetized, which means we can now start focusing on actual field reporting. If you're not subscribed to Subverse on YouTube, it's youtube.com/subversevideos. Emily has been doing a ton of on-the-ground reporting and just putting up raw footage. We just had a video with 100,000 views from field reporting from France. There was an explosion. And we're going to start focusing on maybe a show, maybe field interviews and real conversations. So stick around, keep an eye on it. James J., thanks for becoming a member. Hawk622. I lean to the right and most of my friends are on the left. I keep point to the bias, coverage, borderline props the left puts out, but my friends continue to deny the increasing evidence. Bothersome. You know what freaks me out? If you didn't see my videos about it, the other day, there's an organization. It's called the Free Press, freepress.net. I've known them for years, and I used to support them. I used to donate to them. And because I follow them, I noticed that an organization called the Free Press was advocating for the banning of Alex Jones. At first, I laughed. And then I started to look at their site and realized how insane they've become. I went to the Internet Archive and I looked at their history. They just talked about making sure everyone has access to the internet. They talked about making sure corporations and the government couldn't restrict your access to the internet and what you could share and see. And that was aligned with the hacker community. Today, they're a racial justice organization. And they say that racial justice starts by making sure that black people have access to the internet. Okay, like I don't disagree. I mean, I think everyone should have access to the internet. But it's weird that this is what they've become. And now they're actively advocating against a free press. I don't like Alex Jones, and many people don't. I'm not defending Alex Jones. I'm defending everyone from special interests and corporate billionaires from restricting speech and thought. And this organization is doing so. And this was a real kick in the nuts for me, right? A lot of people, you know, I guess the way I can put it is, recently DerbyCon, a hacker convention, announced it was shutting down. Its last year will be this year because they didn't say this, but this is effectively what's happening. SJWs, right, the regressive left, has caused so much strife within the community that they can't protect themselves anymore. People will come in and make demands of them, and then when they can't abide by these rules that are being forced upon them, these activists threaten their sponsors, they threaten their jobs, and so people are bowing out. This is a direct attack on my community. I grew up with hacker buddies, my friends are hackers, and many of the leaders of the hacker community still believe in a free press, even for Alex Jones. And yes, they also don't like him personally, but understand if he goes, we're next. Hackers have always understood this, but hackers typically are about the free exchange of information. Anybody who would oppose that is in opposition to the ethos, the core tenets of what makes the hacker community. That was a direct assault on my community, and it's scary. Then seeing those who used to align with us flip and actually start attacking our ideals is probably the scariest thing I've experienced in the past several years. This same organization was defending my right to broadcast, to publish, and spoke highly of me. And I'll tell you what, I sent I wouldn't call it mean-spirited, a direct and somewhat frustrated response to one of the staff members on Facebook who I've known, saying, "You are paving the way for billionaires to destroy the next Occupy Wall Street. What happened to you?" And the response, "Fuck you, Tim." And they unfriended me. What does that mean? These people have literally become evil. Maybe they never believed in these ideals in the first place. Maybe they were always corporate interests who wanted to manipulate, pretended to be aligned with us so that they could gather all of our support, convince all of us, all of those who believed in the free exchange of information that they were on we're on the same side, and then they could slowly flip and try and convert as many people who aren't paying attention as possible and corrupt them. I don't think it's worked, but I do know a lot of hackers have bowed out, and that's where it gets scary. Let's read on. Raha Roth says, "I'd almost given up on ethics in journalism, then I found your channel. Keep up the good work, and I'll keep watching." I appreciate it. You know, when it comes to ethics in journalism, it's not about, you know, everyone's always going to adhere to their confirmation bias. And for me, I'm like rather centrist, and I very often go after the authoritarian and mainstream. It's the cultural mainstream left, right? Yes, the Republicans hold a lot of power in government, but that's not the same as the cultural left and cultural right. And my critique is on the people who pretend to be anti-racist, like the Women's March, but now, thank God, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Sarah Silverman and many others have called them out and backed off. And see, I like that. I respect that. Anyway, let's move on. Robert, thanks for becoming a member. Hawkticus Maximus says, "Everything you said is why you have journalistic integrity. Your opinions are clearly stated, and you check all sides as best you can. You are our Cronkite." Oh, I don't know about that. Here's the other crazy thing. I'm just like a dude on the internet who's talking about what I think, and it's the fact that I think it's, I don't know how to describe it, but I don't care what ideal, what ideology, what political spectrum. I don't care whichever one is like dominant. I have no reason to align myself with anybody, and I don't want to, plain and simple. If you want to present a solution, let's check through it, check your facts. If your solution is correct, okay, we'll go with it. And that could be conservative, that could be liberal, it could even be socialist in some regards, it could even be laissez-faire capitalist in some regards. All that matters is you're correct. And if you're not, bye-bye. I don't want to hear it. Plain and simple. So, Buzzfeed, my stars and garters. Fagley says, "You've defended Buzzfeed News in the past. Does this change your opinion of it?" It's still absolutely no. Listen, people make mistakes. This was a mistake on Buzzfeed News' part. Absolutely 100%. I am willing to forgive. This is one thing that we haven't seen with many, this is the problem I have with the regressive left, is the refusal to forgive, okay? BuzzFeed News, they lose a tiny bit of credibility in my eyes, don't get me wrong. But I'm willing to say I still prefer BuzzFeed News over many other outlets for one simple reason. I can literally I can send an email to their authors, to their reporters, even to their editor-in-chief, and they do respond. They don't give me the business. They don't try and play stupid games. I have literally said, I have a huge message chain with one of their higher ups where we talked in messages for like 2 or 3 days, and it was a fair and honest assessment of the stories, and they tried to explain like my concerns with bias. And at the end of it, I said, you know what? I think what it comes down to is they have their sources, and they believe their sources to be true. This is one instance of that. And that's why they believe it. And you know what? I can respect that. I can respect that for Vox, for whoever, for Huffington Post, for Splinter. But the bad faith actors who won't correct themselves, who make insane lies, who accuse people of being Nazis or whatever, that's the problem. And BuzzFeed has done a better job. Don't get me wrong. It hasn't been perfect. But when they covered the fight in New York, they covered that Antifa jumped some dude and robbed him. Most other outlets didn't do that. They just claimed the Proud Boys were bad. BuzzFeed News took the side of the left. You know, sure, they're biased, but they actually still reported that Antifa mugged a guy a block away. They didn't need to do that. It wasn't even part of the story, but they did that. Okay, and so I definitely respect that. I don't think that BuzzFeed News is acting in bad faith, and I don't think that they're lying. I just think they're generally biased, but they're trying to be straightforward about it, at least to me. The Daily Beast, they've put out fake news, straight up fake news, lies that I believe were totally made up. They ignore me every step of the way, and they refuse to address it. See, that's evil. BuzzFeed doesn't do that, right? The fact that BuzzFeed issued this update, the fact that their story was refuted, says to me, you made a mistake. I knew this was going to happen. You shouldn't have done it. But I can appreciate them coming out as quickly as possible with the retraction. And the same goes for CNN and ABC and New York Times. But the issue isn't the organizations in this story. The issue is this story is so tainted, and they keep taking the bait. They keep doing it. So you know what? Yes, I'll give BuzzFeed News a couple demerits, for sure. But I still do like BuzzFeed News way more than Huffington Post or Vox. Or, I mean, Splinter is just terrible. But let's read some more. Working to be self-sufficient says, fuel for the Beanie van broadcasting mobile. It's just a white van. I don't think it's going to be special at all. In fact, the only thing someone asked me if I would paint it, and I said maybe I'll put on it is like Ohio Jim's fecal transport and removal. And then we'll put like paint, like brown paint, handprints on the handles and stuff. That way, nobody will want to go anywhere near it. So I don't got to worry about anybody robbing my van, right? Like, what are you going to do if you walk up to a van and it says like Ohio Jim's fecal transport and removal, and you see brown stains that are like crusted and hard on the handle? You're going to be like, I'm not touching that, right? But that's the trick. It's just paint. And I know inside is going to be a workstation and a shower. And it's like basically urban camouflage. It's smart. Admit it. You know it. It's smart. John Dillon says, please tell me your van has a painting of a wizard fighting a dragon on the side. Nope. Nope. Ohio Jim's fecal transport and removal. Santiago says, is this the peak of Trump derangement syndrome? It's a plateau. In the past week, we've had 2 stories with retractions. 2. I'm sorry. One was a retraction, and the other was that the FBI investigated Trump, but no evidence has ever been presented. The New York Times said that. I can say this right now. There is 0 evidence Trump colluded with Russia or took orders from them, citing the New York Times. And if you can't trust them, who do you trust, right? Admittedly, the New York Times, you shouldn't necessarily trust them. They're I actually like the New York Times. I actually trust the New York Times more than I trust BuzzFeed News. I'm not saying they're perfect by no means. The Dashing Rogue says, evolution is just a theory. Don't believe me. First title of Darwin's Origin of Species for the preservation of favored races is in the struggle for life. I am seriously not going to get an argument about what the literal scientific definition of theory is. Science recognizes that things change and we don't always have 100% of the picture. We don't know for a fact. But gravity is a theory. Gravity exists. If you don't believe me, go walk. No, I'm not even going to make the joke because someone will sue me. Gravity exists, and there's a theory as to how it functions. It is very likely in the future we'll come to understand better, and things will change. Evolution is a theory, which means it happens, it exists. It's been tested and observed for a very long time, and to the best of our understanding, it is a fact, right? But the point of a theory is what makes science great. That we recognize we aren't the smartest, we'll probably never be the smartest, and that times will, as technology advances, our understanding of the world will improve. And a theory, the way I see it, is it basically means to the best of our understanding today, we view this as a fact. This could change. That's what a theory means. The colloquial definition of theory is someone having an idea that may or may not be true. Very, very different definitions. People conflate the two. It's not the case. Evolution exists. Let's move on. G says, please be more sensitive and politically correct. I actually am sensitive and relatively politically correct. I don't even swear for the most part. I've sworn a little bit because sometimes I do want to swear, right, to make a point, to show my anger, to express my emotions. But I don't even swear, right? I won't even read slurs in quotes from other people. I'm very politically correct. I just disagree with forcing people to be politically correct. I have no problem with respect for others. Tawam123 says, next on Buzzfeed, Trump responsible for Fallout 76 debacle, says our anonymous source who is close to God Howard. Todd Howard. John the Serial. Tim, have you ever went to Canada? If so, how long and where? Do you think we are cucks? No, I mean, there's a lot of Canadians who are pretty hardened individuals living up in the wilderness and eating like walrus or whatever. Yeah, I've been to Canada several times. Bunty King in Montreal, I've hung out with him maybe twice, maybe once. I don't know, but if you don't know Bunty, Bunty's a funny guy. I don't think he's doing politics anymore, though, so, you should go check out Bunty when you get a chance. Kevin Simmons says, sometimes your repetition in recorded videos is awful, but I support your work. Keep it up. Depends on the videos, I suppose, right? What a lot of people don't understand is that every video I make has to be, it's presumed that's the first time you've ever seen it. And sometimes I have to reiterate certain ideas. But I also do recognize if you think repetition in my videos is bad today, it was extremely bad last year. And the challenge for it is smart people, many people can hear something and immediately say, I understand. That's not always the case. And so what ends up happening is I try to make sure, to a certain extent, I've got the official reporting and the statement. The other thing I want to point out, too, is that a lot of people don't seem to understand that my videos have introductions, which tries to summarize the video very quickly so you know what you're about to watch. That's all of my main channel videos. And they say, people send me messages all the time saying, oh, but you say all this in the beginning and then say it again. I'm like, right, that's the introduction. You can skip that if you don't want to watch it. But the way YouTube works, the way the average viewer watches, they turn the video on, and if you're not quick as to what's about to happen, they leave immediately. So that's why the first minute is usually like, here's what happened, here's why it happened, here's what I think, let's take a look at the news, and then I basically repeat all of that all over again. So, but I do repeat myself a bit too much sometimes, don't get me wrong. And I say don't get me wrong a lot right now. Sung Sation says, if I pull that head off, will you die? Yes, I will. Uh-oh. Super Chat just jumped again. Give me a second. I gotta scroll back up because this is one of the best features of YouTube. There we go. Question regarding Gillette from Jeff Thomas. Do you believe in the pink tax or have an opinion about it? I think it's a myth and a simple result of marketing. It's funny to me that now leftists fall in line with corporate if convenient. Yeah, it's funny that Gillette charges more for for pink razors than they do for blue razors. And they do. Some people say it's because the female razors have a different kind of lotion and moisturizer. Because men have double the collagen in their skin, they don't need the same kind of moisturizer. I have no idea. It could also be that men typically don't moisturize and don't care. So that may make it cheaper. The general narrative is that they just charge more for the women's razors because they can. And there you go. So it's really funny that if you believe that's true, you would be happy that Gillette is ripping you off in the store, but don't worry, they've won you over by insulting toxic masculinity. Isan Dolan says, thanks for helping me grow my personal political beliefs by always presenting multiple positions. I just try to do what I do. Town, thanks for becoming a member. Miles Kinslow says, sending some cash from Chicago, wish you well. Appreciate it. From Chicago, sweet home Chicago. The Dashing Rogue, Russian narrative also stops real talk about Russia without being called an NPC, so little things like oil pipelines, monopolies in EU, and French taxes on fuel don't get reported from that angle. Yep. Christopher says, I lean hard right and appreciate your honest work. I appreciate that. Rando number 9 says, anyone who believes anything from Buzzfeed has to take the largest L of all time. I don't know what that means, but I think Buzzfeed is just biased, but I don't think they're certainly not, like, man, they're like, Vox is awful. Just The Verge is awful. The Verge wrote fake news about Blair White, and instead of correcting it, they doubled down and put more fake news in. Yeah, okay, good job. Stealth Creations, I'm trying to do on-the-ground reporting, but I'm stuck for local travel along the West Coast. Any leads on events, groups to look out for in 2019? I don't know. I do know that most of the action takes place on the East Coast, but the West Coast is the most extreme when it comes to, like, riots and stuff. So, man, I don't know. It's tough. Drive a lot. Hard to Watch says, what do you think, of Trump being able to lay off government employees after the 30th day of the shutdown? Any merit to this idea? I don't know anything about it, but I've heard that, right? I mentioned it in one of my videos that some people are thinking that Trump is hoping for a 30-day shutdown because there's an idea called a reduction in force, where after 30 days of furlough, you can start removing federal employees very easily. Normally, they're protected by unions. It's hard to get rid of them. So maybe, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump starts just axing tons of people, for real. I would, seriously. Dennis B says, I thought the van life video was great. I'd love it if you had some videos of random things you thought were cool. Yeah, I think typically I try to do like a gaming video because it's things that I think are cool or interesting, and there's an overlap with gaming and politics. I did the van video because I had a bunch of stories up, and then I was scrolling through Daily Mail, and then I saw the story, and I was like, I just started closing all the other tabs. I'm like, I am done with this. I am like, and here I am now doing a live stream at 8 because BuzzFeed essentially has to report that their story has been refuted by the special counsel's office. Wow, good job, BuzzFeed. Galandro Glade says, keep up the great work, Tim. I have a lot of respect for you and what you're doing. Loved your clip on the bus conversion, and yes, doing a clip on something more casual is a great idea, even if it's for your own sanity. But not just that, I think it's like, you know, this is my life. I read and watch news all day, every day, nonstop. I went and saw Glass yesterday. That was awesome. Wow, I really, really loved that movie. And I thought Split was good. I liked Split. I think James McAvoy was incredible as the Horde, and that's why I liked Split. For the most part, I was kind of like, yeah, it's not like the greatest movie in the world. It's popcorn flick. It's great to watch. But Glass was great, and I really, really hope they do more. I hope, like, DC failed so miserably at creating a cinematic universe, and M. Night Shyamalan has one of the coolest superhero universes ever with the Unbreakable saga. And I hope, I don't want to spoil it, but I hope there's a universe built off of this, and I think that's what they're going to do, and that will be awesome. Hopefully they do it right. So if you haven't seen Glass, watch Unbreakable, watch Split, and then see Glass. I thought Glass was awesome. I thought it was really good. I think M. Night Shyamalan has had a bunch of bad movies. The Sixth Sense was good. It was fantastic. Unbreakable was pretty good. Not as good as Sixth Sense. And Glass, I thought, was awesome. So I put like Glass and Unbreakable really like kind of on par with each other. Maybe Glass was better than Unbreakable. But I was surprised because I typically do not like most of his latest movies. But man, Glass was awesome. Seriously. James Kratos, 777. Perhaps hackers should organize and fight back, defend themselves. Yeah, they do. They used to. We'll see what happens. Don't count them out. Jay Spiegel says, Tim, your opinion is respected because you always look for the truth without injecting ideology. I always want to know what you think as a result. Hey, appreciate it. Araya says, screw Patreon. Here's the cash I would have given this month. Thank you. Appreciate that too. Sinuous Grace, no need to read. Just sending a tip. Thank you. Well, I read it anyway. Abigail, thanks for the super chat. Christopher Lambert, on mobile full screen, live stream chats are on the left covering your face. On the next live stream, you should put your face on the right. Play D&D. I actually, I think the chats are off my live stream now because the way I started doing my second channel is to actually use OBS, my live stream software, to record it. I bought a brand new camera because we're planning on upgrading, doing the show, doing the Subverse thing. It was very expensive, but you have to do it. The camera I'm using right now for this live stream is like 5 years old. Yep. Because the new camera I just bought, was very excited for, just stopped working. It's been 2 weeks. I gotta drive back up to New York and swap it out. That's so much fun. But you know what? I got no beef. Canon makes great cameras, and B&H, they always take care of me when I have issues. I love that store. B&H is the best camera place ever. No, I am not endorsed in any way. It's just seriously, every single time I've had a problem, they used to like tell me to shush, and they just take care of it with no questions asked. And that is the utmost respect. That is a good business. Non-Servium R says, just put free candy on the side of the van, yeah. Spencer Harmon, without Judeo-Christian values, you don't have the Enlightenment. Well, here's what I can say. I am not a Christian, but I do want to make one point about Judeo-Christian values. Liberal democracy is an offshoot of Judeo-Christian values. What we do as a people is, over time, we take our existing faith and ideology and remove the bad things and keep the good things. And we've done that for a very long time. The regressive left is threatening that to an extreme degree because they're reactionary and regressive. They want to revert us back to a racist time period. They want to take away the right to our expression. This is reactionary. And what they've done is very clever. They pretend that everyone else is reactionary. No, that's not true, okay? Reactionary is, they want to return you to the way things used to be. Currently, people who support free expression for everyone, who oppose racism, this is the new era. It was like, was it 1967 Civil Rights Act? Racism was legal. It's done. The people who want to enact race-based policies are reactionaries who are trying to bring it back. That's scary. But the one important thing I was fascinated to learn is that Blackstone's formulation, the idea that it is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer, is actually rooted in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, when God said that for the sake of even one person in those cities, he would not destroy them. And it was only after all of the virtuous people were rescued that God decimated the cities. Now, that's look, it's just blowing up cities because the people are sinful is something else entirely. I believe it was turned into a pillar of salt or something. I don't. It's been a while since I went to Bible study or something. But the point is, I can't remember the name of the person in the Bible. If you're Christian or Catholic, maybe you know this better, actually, or Jewish too. But he said to God, what if there are 50 virtuous people in the city? And he says, for the sake of them, I will not destroy the city. He says, what about 30? And God says, for the sake of the 30, I won't. And then finally says, what about if it's just one? And God says, I won't do it. And the point of that story is that if there is one person who is worthy of saving, you can't condemn everyone. You have to protect the innocent. And this idea evolved into what's now called Blackstone's formulation, which is partly the basis of our judicial system. Presumption of innocence. It is better that there are criminals out on the street than innocent people being locked up and suffering for a lot of reasons. And that's actually gets the idea originated with the Bible. In my opinion, I think a lot of what religion was our first attempt at law and science. And atheists might get mad at me, but no. Think about the first, tribal humans, when you could officially call them human, Homo sapien, sitting there trying to understand the world around them. And they told stories and they came up with ideas. And those ideas were told in the Bible, right? This is what we see. This is what we experience. This is our truth. Over time, our understanding of the universe has evolved dramatically beyond that. I'm not someone who believes that the Bible is the Word of God. If you are, by all means, you're free to. I just don't. I think what the Bible is humanity's first attempt at understanding the universe, and it was rudimentary. But a lot of our principles came from it. And to the Reformed religions, we abandoned all of the bad stuff. Do we stone women who commit adultery? No. They just go to divorce court and they might lose their kids, right? Do we beat people who have same-sex relationships? No, we don't. Although there are many religious people who think it's abomination still and don't like it, they don't go and attack them. And that is progress. The fact that there are religious fundamentalist Christians in this country who no longer believe you're going to go and stone someone to death for being gay, as much as they still hold that view, which I find detestable, that's a massive amount of progress and reform that's come to the religion, if you understand what I mean. And then for even liberals, they don't seem to understand that many tenets of liberalism came from, evolved out of biblical ideology. And what that means is there are good things in the Bible. We've taken those things and iterated upon them to create the foundation of our society. And for liberals, for the most part, and even conservatives, we've removed all of the bad stuff. Not all of it. We're doing better every day. But let's read some more. Gregory Horton says, what is your character alignment? I don't know. True neutral, maybe? I don't even know if it's fair to call myself true neutral. Someone else has to assign that for you. I'm definitely not lawful neutral or lawful good. I don't know. Neutral, I have no idea. I have no idea. You guys give me my character alignment. Milk my mantits. Okay. Good day, Tim. Greetings. Greetings from Stria. Get some tinnies down, you mate. You sound like you need a couple of Bush chooks. The world of news is an insane place. Must take its toll on ya. Yeah, you know, somewhat, but I love it. I was thinking about, like, what if I just, like, made my van, went skateboarding, and just left? And I'd be like, no way, that'd be too boring. Glenn Carver says, politics are a waste of time. Friend says, W2DO. I don't know what that is, but is that rubles? I don't know. It says Rube40. I assume it is. Rubles are cool. Thanks, appreciate it. Wyman Taylor says, Russiagate started as a coup, became deep state protection. Raha Roth said, here's another 100 for your fecal cleanup service. Keep up the good work. For those that don't get that joke, if you just tuned in, I'm talking about building a mobile studio van. And the joke I made is that I'm not going to put any cool decals or logos on it. I'm going to write Ohio Gyms, fecal transport and removal, and put brown paint hand stains on, like, the handle and stuff. So it's urban camouflage. No one will go anywhere near the van. No criminal, no Antifa. They're going to be like, I don't know what that is. I ain't touching that. That looks like feces on it, right? Smart. And you know it. Josh Martinez, it's jumped again. Let's see if I can find that where I was. Josh Martinez, do you have VR? If not, have you ever tried it? It would be a great way to get away from the nonsense. I do. And I have Skyrim and Fallout, and it's so much fun, but I can't wait for it to get better because the resolution's not that great. But it's, I've got a big space, and I'm thinking about turning my living room into, because it's very open, and just putting VR in it, and then you can just, I want to get a wireless VR headset, but they're, like, expensive, so I don't know if that'll happen. But we'll see. I've got Oculus, which is fun. Robert Atkinson says, you've noted America is not breeding enough to sustain American culture. Why do you accept the importation of people that do not understand our culture? You should move towards breeding yourself. Most of my friends, as a liberal, my female friends, and the people I've had relationships with, do not want families, and thus it doesn't happen. Plain and simple. The closest I've ever got to a family was a woman I was dating saying, if we end up getting pregnant, we're going to have a family. And I said, okay. But there was no plan for it. Nobody wanted to do it. It was, you know, and we were both working a lot. I think this is something I have to do with, look, I'm going to cite all these other news stories that women have careers, so they don't have time for family, and it's plain and simple. The women I know literally tell me that they've got too much to work on. And so we just, nope, doesn't happen, you know. Though, I will say, I'm rather nihilistic in a lot of ways. I'm not overly concerned about what the future will look like for the most part. I certainly have no issue with immigration. And I think that ultimately what's going to happen is there's not going to be, it's not going to be Western monoculture. It is going to be and it's not multiculturalism either. I think that's a misnomer. Like, multiculturalism implies all these different cultures are side by side. No, I think we're going to have an amalgam culture, right? The United States has been adopting different cultural ideas and words. English, for instance. I think over time, communication is going to merge many cultures together. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be civil conflict. And ultimately, we'll end up with something. I believe I believe liberal democracy will be the rule of the planet when the planet is globalized. I do. I really think it's going to happen. I think it's inevitable. Or we all die because we blow ourselves up. Joe Hannon, 718, says, my Patreon for a month, which cam broke could help. So I bought a Canon XF405. It's very expensive. It's like $3,000. It broke. I have no idea how. I had it for 2 weeks. I literally have the camera on a tripod and I press on and off. That's it. I've done nothing with it. But I'm just going to go back to B&H. I hand it to them. They hand me a replacement. So I think there was something wrong with it when they sold it to me. So I just have to go and swap it out, plain and simple. So I don't need any help with that. And I don't ever do fundraisers for like equipment or anything, or for the van. You know, people told me to do a GoFundMe to fund the van, and no, right? When you guys done it on the live stream, like that's all money towards the van. I do make ad revenue. Admittedly, my Patreon is like almost non-existent at this point. It's at like 15 or 20% of what it was at its peak. I'll just say this, right? At its peak, I believe it was like $8,500 per month on Patreon. And the reason I say that now, for the most part, is that, you know, Rubin and Peterson also basically published the amount of money they were making. And the only reason I have it private is because it's used as a weapon by activists. They started going to my page and they started spreading rumors about how much money I was making, and they started spreading rumors about what I was spending things on and things like that. So I thought, when it comes to finances, it's better to keep most things private, because you don't want to give your enemies too much information. And by all means, you know, for the people who choose to donate, it's fantastic. I absolutely wish, so I'll just say this. Jordan Peterson, when he deleted his Patreon, he showed it at $33,000 per month. I'm sorry. Wow. Because I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I have the ability to stare at an income stream of $33,000 per month and say, yeah, no, bye, click off. Admittedly, I haven't deleted my Patreon. I've just essentially stopped posting to it because I'm still getting just about $2,000 per month, and I really can't afford not to do that. Maybe if I write a New York Times bestseller like Jordan and go on this tour, you know, maybe when I'm in my 50s and I'm making substantially more money or anywhere near, like close to what Rubin or Peterson make, maybe then I can axe something like $33,000 per month. But goddamn, let me just say, I'm assuming Peterson's extremely well off. You know, he's got a New York Times bestseller for sure. But wow, for him and Sam Harris to axe their accounts, that's like just on their accounts alone, like $120K per month. Bravo, like that's principle right there. I gotta say that. Let's read some more. Neeboop says, longtime Patreon, but left Patreon for grit getting in motors. Are thermal issues a thing on the Karma? I have a few of them, and you mentioned how you protected your motors, metal duct tape. I don't know what you're talking about, motors. What do you mean? I don't know. Rick B, thanks for the super chat. Martin the Panda. First, Ret Paladins are better for soloing in WoW than rogues. Second, any thoughts on the March for Life today? Ford Fisher had some great coverage. You guys are awesome. No, I was paying attention to the Trump Buzzfeed stuff, and I'm going to say this. You're wrong about Ret Paladins. You're probably right from a stats point of view, but the thing about rogues is that, for one, I use the grappling hook, so I can easily go up and down mountains and things like that. They kind of nerfed it, but whatever. But more importantly, I can explore as much as I want and even go into PvP areas and be safe, because in World of Warcraft, rogues can stealth, so I disagree with you. But I think you're probably right when it comes to stats, for sure. Samuel Eddy says, uh-oh, and it jumped again. And I'm nearing a few minutes, I'm going to sign off. So I appreciate everybody tuned in. Samuel Eddy says, it was Abraham, and he only got to 5. That there were 4. Yes, Abraham. In terms of Sodom and Gomorrah and protecting the virtuous. Non-Servium R says, what's your take on the death penalty? I am 110% opposed to the death penalty. I believe that taking life is morally wrong. I also believe, I do not believe that abortion should be used as contraception. I believe that abortion should always be something to be mourned and should typically only be used in instance of dire needs, right? What that means is, I don't know what is or isn't dire for you. I don't. It's not my life, and I don't know how to judge that. And there are certain circumstances where women will have a miscarriage, and there are certain circumstances where something is threatening to them in some way. I am not the judge of that. That is your life. I believe in free. I believe in. I don't have the authority to dictate what is or isn't dire for you, but I do believe it's nuanced, and I am quite alarmed by. I've talked about this before in some videos, like Michelle Wolf, I think her name is, did a video where she made like mocked abortion and said everyone should go get abortions. Lena Dunham said she wished she had one, and I'm like, you know what, man? That's just so, in my opinion, it's so nasty. It's like, listen, don't be irresponsible. Don't terminate a life because you are irresponsible. You know, I really don't agree with the idea that a fertilized embryo or whatever is not a life. Look. When a miscarriage happens, yeah, oh, I just forgot the word I was going to say. But that's devastating. Absolutely devastating for women who are trying to have a baby and have a miscarriage. Sometimes they don't know they have a miscarriage and it just happens. And then sure, that's still bad. Think about someone who's trying to have a family and the woman miscarries. It's devastating to them. So it's not to be trivialized by no means. Like, this is extremely important. Also think about, if a woman gets pregnant and you commit a crime against her, a violent act against her, and kill the baby, you can be charged in many states. Like, I just don't think you're allowed to have this double standard. I think there are certain circumstances where the decision has to be made, and it's unfortunate. And I think ultimately it should be the legal choice of the woman, her doctor, over what is or isn't important, because it's just really complicated, you know, and I recognize it's really hard to find moral high ground on this one. But I do not want to find myself in a position where the government is dictating what is or isn't acceptable in terms of healthcare. That should be a private matter for you and your doctor, plain and simple, and that's why it needs to be legal. And I recognize that means there's going to be some bad people getting away with stuff that I find disgusting, but man, I believe in, as a left libertarian, I like the idea of cooperation, but I also don't like the idea of people asserting authority over other people, and that scares me more than basically anything else. And this is probably one of the most difficult moral conundrums and ethical conundrums in my opinion. Abortion, seriously. But let's read on. I don't even know why I was talking about death penalty, but I equate the two. I seriously do. Rick Moranis says, when CNN's headline says this 100% happened, it 100% didn't happen. Unbelievable. Well, CNN said if true about Buzzfeed. So BuzzFeed was wrong. Essa Doolin says, definitely neutral, good. Appreciate it. Glenn Carver says, Russian collusion confirmed. What to do? Oh, okay. More rubles. Jabberwolf says, Tim, look back on Spain, Cuba, Brazil, and Venezuela. The left starts off righteous, then turns into Orwell's Animal Farm pigs. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. It's true. Animal Farm, read it. If you haven't read Animal Farm, you need to read it because it's amazing. It's seriously. Philip Aboudi. Could it be that men evolved to be a little sexist and women evolved to be bitchy to each other so women stay at home and make babies? Oh, I have no idea. I'm not an expert on that. I like the Spikeman says, only time I'll donate to you. Tim, I love you. You are my lefty friend. You are my lefty friend I never had. Hugs. And also, what's up with that with airplane food? Depends on the airplane food. British Airways is really good airplane food. The Grand Inquisitor says, it wasn't Abraham at Sodom and Gomorrah, it was Lot. Lot's wife disobeyed God and looked back at the destruction and turned into a pillar of salt. There you go. That's correct. Devere Dover says, love your work, Tim. Fun fact, did you know that Jesus Christ is the current king of Poland? Wow, really? That's actually really interesting. Okay, I've been up for just over an hour, and I've made 7 videos today. This is my 8th video, and I need to go. I almost never drink. This is a fact. I believe I have like a beer per year. I'm going to go have a beer, and I'm also going to go make what's called beer bread. So we went to the Philadelphia Liberty Bell souvenir shop, and they have these bottles of dough. It's like flour, and you pour it out, and you pour a beer into it, and it turns into bread dough, and you bake it. And it's amazing, especially if you pick the right beer, okay? So I got some beer. I'm going to enjoy this. And then I'm going to relax. And hopefully I get the van built. But anyway, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I just wanted to do this live stream to quickly address this story that BuzzFeed News was wrong. You can follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to this channel if you want more videos every day at 4 p.m. They're much more straight-laced. My second channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews, is off-the-cuff opinion, and sometimes I'm angry and swear, and sometimes I'm mean, but I try not to be. And then also youtube.com/SubverseVideos is going to be the new formal branded production. Probably other people, not just me. So there you have it. And with that, I am going to sign off, and thanks once again for hanging out. I'll see you next time.